say
Okay.
something about it anyway, but it
Okay.
says, all right, so it says chat 3. I don't know what that means.
All right. I think we are live. Yes? Yes.
All right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Lost Suitcases, Souls Driven by Wanderlust. I am your host, Valerie Pennington, and every week we come on and talk about adventures and adventurers and the amazing things that happen during travel, especially during this time when, of course, none of us are traveling right now. And today I'm so excited to have not only an amazing storyteller, an amazing human being, but also my colleague, Professor Dave Brady. He teaches with me at Southwestern College, and we've known each other for a minute, I think, about
Mm.
20
Oh, it's
plus
been, I
years
was, I
now.
was thinking about it today. It's been 20 years anyway,
Yeah.
something like that. So yeah, it's been a
Well,
while.
I have to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on my show today. And we are going to talk about a trip that you did last year,
Yeah.
which is truly extraordinary. I think it's one of the most awe-inspiring places on Earth. And you did a 2-week trek to Mount Everest Base Camp. You went with REI, yes?
That's correct. When I
Okay.
decided I was going to do it, I wanted to try to do it with a company out of the U.S. Because trying to get in touch with people, on the other side of the world, in Kathmandu is just too difficult to do. And while REI is certainly not the cheapest trip you can go on, they took excellent care of us, and any problems that did arise, and problems, of course, did, we were able to get them resolved out of Seattle rather than trying to, like I say, do it halfway around the world. So yeah, with this last um, April, actually April 21st, which happened to be Easter Sunday, 2019, our group was at base camp. So it's a 19-day trip, 14 days on the trail. But and I had the semester off, as you know, and I thought to myself, what have I always wanted to do that working never let me do? And during probably August or September, I thought, I've always dreamed about going to Everest and trekking in Nepal. So I did a little bit of research, checked on prices and dates and things like that, and then one thing led to another, and I found myself, and I have to mention, of course, my brother Tom came with me, and we found ourselves getting on a plane in LA, and I don't know how many hours later or days later, getting off a plane in Kathmandu. So it was quite it was an adventure just getting there, that's for sure. So anyway, but I've
Yeah,
always,
going.
I've always been into the outdoorsy kind of stuff. As you mentioned, I've done some triathloning in my misspent youth through the 80s and part of the 90s. I've done a lot of rock climbing, and just read a lot of books about Mount Everest, and the idea of actually seeing it with my own eyes, to be like, okay, yeah, now's the time to do it. If I waited until this year to do it, well, we all know what would have happened then. I'd still be going like, man, I should have done it the year before. So you gotta
Yes.
you gotta do it when you can. So that's good
I
advice.
I definitely think that's one of the take homes of pretty much everybody who's been on the show, is that, at the end of our days, we never regret the chances we took or the things that we tried, even if we fail,
Hmm.
but we regret the things that we never tried. And we all, like our entire department, when you announced that you were going to do this, I don't think many of us were too surprised, but we all knew that you would make it,
Well, it's
and we're
certainly
just so excited that you did it and that you did make it up there.
I
So
did, and it certainly wasn't a given. One thing about traveling at altitude, you just never ever know how the body's gonna react. I mean, I've hiked to 14,000 feet in the U.S. a couple of times, but this was going to be pushing almost 18,000 feet at base camp. And there's people who go to Mammoth Lakes, 10,000 feet, and just get sick. So
right,
you just
right.
never know. And I certainly didn't know. And every day on the trail was a new adventure. It's like, well, how's it going to be today? So, but
Right,
it, it,
right.
it, it, it was okay. It certainly was the most difficult thing I think I've ever ever attempted to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
So
amazing.
as they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So I know you have some
Indeed,
pictures to
I
go with
do.
your story
So
here. So
let's
let's
see if we can
let's
start
start
this up.
there.
And
Yeah.
here we go. We hope.
It'll
All
work.
right. Well, anyway, so April 2019, early April, is when we started to start our trip to Nepal. And the gateway to Everest is the capital city of Nepal, which is Kathmandu. I was never able to get an accurate figure on the number of people who live there. Some people say 2 million, some say 5 million, but it's a huge sprawling city in a large sort of valley. The air quality is not good.
Dave, I
Lots
don't
of,
know. If are you sharing right now? Because I'm not seeing it.
oh my
That's
goodness.
why I'm sorry, I'm
Thank you.
interrupting you, but
No.
yeah.
Let's go to screen share.
Sorry.
I forgot. Here we are. Gosh.
There we go. We're almost there. Okay.
Wow. What a
Okay,
dummy.
there we go.
I do this all the
No,
time for my
no.
classes in Canvas. All right. So
Does it go? There
hopefully
we
there's
go.
a picture
Now we
of
got it full screen.
Kathmandu.
Now we're with you now.
All right. Well, big
Wow.
giant city in a big bowl, 2 to 5 million people, bad air quality. Lots of people wear masks, but it's not for COVID. It's for the poor air quality. Kathmandu or Nepal suffered a devastating earthquake in 2015, and the city is still in rebuilding in lots of ways, but it's certainly a developing country. This is another view of Kathmandu. It's also referred to as the city of temples. The majority of people in Nepal, certainly in Kathmandu, identify themselves as Hindu, although there is a very large Buddhist population as well. But this was just from the roof of our hotel. Most of the buildings, as I say, are 5 or 6 stories tall. There's really aren't any high rises, but it's a poor country. The average income is less than $1,000 a year, US. I can only imagine with trekking and climbing being shut down this year in Nepal, that how bad a time these folks have been having.
Yeah.
But Kathmandu is a city of temples, and we when all our group, there were 9 of us that went on the trip, assembled, we were taken on a city tour and went to various temples, Hindu temples, Buddhist temples. They're just everywhere. This was up. You can see a lot of people there. I don't remember what day of the week this was, but it's always generally a mixture of Hindu and Buddhist temples occupying the same area. And you can see lots of Westerners there, lots of locals as well. I should have done more reading about Buddhism and the Hindu religion before I went over there, but I just didn't. But if you're trekking to base camp, you're going to probably be staying in an area called Tamal, which is the sort of main trekking, area of Kathmandu. It's a very concentrated area of shops and hotels and streets, small alleys. And if you've forgotten, you could book a trip out of agencies in Tamal. I would not recommend it. I think you should probably have it done before you get there. But if you forgot anything, you can find it here or at a couple of spots along the way. One thing to tell travelers about, though, if you're I forgot a down jacket, or I need, trekking pants or something like that, and you go into the stores in Tamal, you would say to yourself, oh man, I'm getting a killer deal on this, Mountain Hardwear parka or North Face vest or something like that. Yeah, they're all knockoffs from China. And
sure.
yeah, so it's like, okay, but it'll get you through the trip. But after a day of rest and recuperations, it was off to Lukla. This is our group. I'm the guy with the gray hat in the foreground. The gentleman behind me with the down jacket, blue and black down jacket, gray mustache, and back of me is my brother Tom. And that's the rest of our group. range of age was from the youngest person, who is the young lady in the green and gray top in the side of the photo there. She was 27, and if you just turn that 27 around to 72, then you get the guy with the gray hat on who's doing the narration. So a wide range of ages for this trip. But Lukla is the jumping off point to the Khumbu. This is the Tenzing Hillary Airport, 9,400 feet. Kathmandu is about 4,500 feet. So you're going up about 5,000 feet to the Tenzing Hillary Airport. Hillary bought the land the airport actually opened in 1964. The runway was paved in 2001, as we were told. This airport is often referred to as the most dangerous airport in the world. There is no go-rounds here. We went in by helicopter, which is, I think, a pretty, well, not safe way to go in, but a better way to go in, because only the most experienced pilots can land fixed-wing aircraft here. The weather has to be perfect. There is no chance, if you have to abort the landing, that you're probably not going to clear the mountains. So the runway slopes up or down, depending on whether you're landing or taking off, at 12 degrees. This is a view looking down the runway. And the airport lived up to its reputation. Sadly, the day after we left Lukla, we heard on the trail that a fixed-wing aircraft somehow had veered off the runway. There was nobody in the fixed-wing aircraft at the time except the co-pilot, and somehow he veered off the runway, hit a helicopter, and there were 3 fatalities. So it is an exciting place to go, that's for sure. So from Lukla, you organize your gear, and the first day's trek is very easy, down to a small town called Pakding. So you're actually going down in elevation to 8,500 feet. REI's accommodations for this trek were sometimes in tents and sometimes in tea houses. I actually preferred the tents myself. But this was our first day, our first evening in Pakding. It was only a 3-mile walk down to the village of Pakding. Unfortunately, it was not without mishap, and it involved my brother. At some point in time, I did not see the accident when it happened. Tom took a very bad fall and injured his knee, and also really badly bruised his hip. But he wouldn't entertain the idea of not going on. So the next day from Pakding, you ascend, and that is with a capital A, the trail up to the sort of major Sherpa town, Namche Bazaar. You can see the picture on the left, sort of just what the lower portions of the trail look like. Those are some porters, not our porters, and typical loads. The porters will carry 40 to 50 kilos on these trails. And tea houses all along the way where you can stop. You can stay there if you wanted to, get lunch, a cup of tea, whatever you want. But one of the hallmarks of the Lower Khumbu, when you're ascending up to Everest Base Camp, are these swinging bridges. You cross many of them on the way. If you have a problem with heights, don't go. This was one of the more infamous, I suppose is the best word for it, bridges along the trail. We were told that this was going to happen, or we were going to run across this bridge right before you start the ascent up to Namche. The bridge, I don't know how long it is. I don't know, 100 yards, something like that. It does bounce and it does sway, and you can see the prayer flags are blowing, so it is quite windy. This bridge passes over a gorge. It's in the center, if you care to look over. It's close to 1,000 feet. Not all of them are that high. This is an exception, but this was one that got everybody's attention. So you cross this bridge, and then things really get ugly, especially for my poor brother. This is the trail up to Namche. It probably goes up, at least 1,000 feet in about a mile. It is very rocky, very steep. You can see in the one picture, that's one of our guides just sort of waiting for some, these are not yaks, they're called zokios, which are kind of a yak-cow cross. but they always have the right of way. They're coming down the trail and we're waiting to go up the trail to Namche. The distances are never very far, but boy, the elevation begins to wear on you a lot. This is the town of Namche Bazaar. It's at 11,000 feet. We started that morning at about 8,800 feet. So you see, we went up a bit. Namche is the main Sherpa town in the Khumbu region. I was told that about 1,500 people live here. These are all guest houses, hotels, and you get into the town of Namche and you think to yourself, oh, thank goodness we're in Namche. You know, I can get to my hotel and relax and have a cup of tea, what have you. I don't remember exactly which of these buildings is our hotel, but I do remember it was one of the ones almost at the very top of the picture. So you're in town, but you are not done yet. You still have to get up to your hotel. My brother is actually in this picture. He's the gentleman carrying the trekking poles with the black jacket on and the hat. And this was an extraordinarily difficult day for Tom. I told him later, I said, one of the bravest things I've ever seen, that you got yourself up here. It was difficult for everyone. But this was going to be a rest day. The next day we were going to acclimatize in Namche. The mantra on the trail is hike high, sleep low. So the next day we were going to do a sort of an acclimatization hike, spend another night in Namche trying to get our sea level bodies in shape for the rest of the trek. But Namche, again, if you forgot anything, this is where you can get it. There's always some animals in the way, animals carrying loads, gas cylinders up to base camp or up to other villages. There are no roads in the Khumbu region. There are no mechanized vehicles at all. Everything that moves up to Khumbu to Everest or the higher villages goes either on the backs of people, and you see some amazing loads that you'll see in a few minutes here, or with various types of animals like donkeys or zokes, or from Namche on up, of course, yaks. One of the things that we found out in Namche is you can actually get an internet connection all the way to Everest Base Camp. So several of us bought things called Everest Link, and we'll get you internet access all the way to base camp. So downtown Namche, everything you need there. The acclimatization hike took us up 1,500 feet to the Everest View Hotel. We did not see Everest from there. It was too cloudy that day, but definitely some mountain vistas. Our first view of some of the high mountains, and definitely interesting. My brother took this day off to try to recover, which was very smart of him to do that. But it wasn't all that hard. But you know, our bodies were hopefully getting a little bit more used to the altitude. But the following day, we got to see what we came to see.
Wow.
Let's turn around and go home now, right? We were on the trail to the next town, which is called Portse, and we were on a fairly moderate trail, fairly level. We went around the corner, and it was like, oh. Actually,
Yeah.
someone came up next to me and said, "What's that mountain?" I kind of looked at him and went, "Seriously?" Anyway, Everest is the more pyramid-shaped peak towards the left-hand side of this picture, 29,029 feet, the highest place on Earth. The more triangular-shaped picture, more peak in the center of the picture, is Lhotse. Lhotse is a subsidiary peak. It's Lhotse just a shade under 28,000 feet. There are just a little historic trivia here. There are 14 peaks in the world that are higher than 8,000 meters, which is essentially 26,000 feet. Nepal is home to 8 of those 14 8,000 meter peaks. Everest and Lhotse, number 1 and number 4. I think we saw, let's see, at least 2 more 8,000 meter peaks. Everest was first climbed in 1953 by, of course, Ed Hillary and his Sherpa guide, Tenzing Norgay. So we did get to see these 2 peaks, but unfortunately, later in the day, this is our group would sometimes joke there's not a level spot in the entire country of Nepal, but ever onwards, ever upwards. But a few hours after we saw the peaks of Lhotse and Everest, we were ascending very steeply. We're going to start a very steep ascent to our lunch stop at a little village called Mong, M-O-N-G. And Tom was going pretty slowly. I stayed at the back of the train all the time, anyway, but with my brother. And Tupten, you'll see a picture of him, our lead Sherpa, stopped with Tom on the trail and said, "You can't go on. I'm going to have to call a helicopter to evacuate you." He was beginning to show signs of what everybody dreads, which is acute mountain sickness. And he was actually showing signs of the more serious of the mountain sicknesses, which is cerebral edema. Pulmonary edema is nothing to laugh at, of course, either. But Tupten's word is the Supreme Court. If he says you're going back, you're going back. And this is one of the key things I should tell everyone. If you did a trek like this, please buy travel insurance, because the only way out of here is you don't get on the bus and go back to Kathmandu. They call you a helicopter, and that is not inexpensive. So unfortunately, my brother had to be evacuated back to Kathmandu, where he rapidly recovered. But it was a very sad moment for me, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, onwards and upwards to the town of Portse. It snowed almost every evening. We were staying obviously in tents that night. And the food in the picture is something, it's the sort of staple of Nepal. It's called dal bhat. Lentils and rice. There's probably an egg in there. I'm not sure what that white thing in the background is. A word about food on the trek. Food is basically the fuel. Obviously, it's the fuel, but by that I mean it's. I read before we went over. Oh, the meals were great. They were delicious. The meals were okay, but as you go up in altitude, your appetite is suppressed. You don't sleep well. I mean, people are hearing me talk about this. Is like, why would you even do this? You don't sleep well. You're cold. You don't have much appetite. You can't breathe. But I don't know, Valerie, if you remember this or not, but the night that we had our video chat, this is where I was. I was in the town of Portse. Yes. So it was a tough night for me because I'd lost my brother on the trip, but he was insistent that that I was going to continue on, and he was going to wait for me back in Kathmandu. So this was the little village of Portse. And onwards and upwards, again, this is what inside a tea house looks like. Very rudimentary. The picture with the folks eating on the right is our group. We were sharing it with a group of Aussies. We were sleeping outside in the tents, but the very rudimentary accommodations. The next stop is a town called Pangboche. Just mountain vistas wherever you look. You can't really describe them. It's just, it's like, wow, what's that giant peak? Oh, that's a little baby 20,000 foot peak, Right. So it was just incredible. But yaks, as I found out, or as we found out, are not found below 11,000 feet. They just don't do well at lower elevation. And yaks always have the right of way, which was fine for us because that meant you got to go off the trail and sit down and have a rest. Yaks have huge lungs. They can carry up to 200 pounds. These yaks are probably carrying water up to base camp. And you see them like everywhere. Our group did not have yaks. We had the other animal called the zoaks, but we weren't carrying that much stuff. Our next stop was this little town, Pangboche. Again, we camped. This is very early in the morning. It was quite cold, obviously. The mountains in the background, Everest and Lhotse. And we were waiting for the sun to come up. It finally did, and one of the most amazing breakfasts I've ever had, in the shadow of Everest, Lhotse, and another iconic peak of the Khumbu called Amadablam. But what are we eating?
Dave, that is incredible. Who cares what you're eating? I mean, look at that. It's wow. Oh my God.
Probably some sort of porridge. You know, who knows, you know, but
Wow.
yeah, it was, yeah, a room with a view, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh,
After
that's
breakfast,
remarkable.
we headed to the Pangboche Monastery. Our head guide, Tupten, had been a Buddhist monk for 15 years. He took us into the Pangboche Monastery. You're not allowed to take pictures past this point. We were shown sacred relics, presumably the hand and the skull of a Yeti. I don't know. You know, I'll leave that up to,
Okay.
you know, if you want to believe in the Bigfoot of the Himalayas, we saw a Yeti hand and skull.
Okay.
I don't know. I think most people would tell you that it's the Himalayan brown bear that people have been seeing all those years. But the Pangboche Monastery was very interesting. I wish I had pictures, but I can't show you. The stop that night, this was actually a fairly easy trek, was the town of Dingboche. It's at an elevation of over 14,000 feet. And as we found out, none of the villages above Dingboche, including this town, all have year-round inhabitants. You just don't stay there when the monsoon hits, which is June, July, August. The locals plant potatoes and they go back down the mountain. This was going to be a second acclimatization day. We are 3 days from base camp, and we would be staying again in tents in the town of Dingboche. This is kind of what it looks like. Just tiny little, you know, there was a nice coffee house actually in this town that actually served good coffee. On our acclimatization hike, you can see one of the Hotel Good Luck on the roof. But a small little villages, the fields are where the people plant their potatoes and then come back and harvest them after the monsoon. Trekking to Everest Base Camp is very popular. You will never feel like there's, you know, if you wanted to do it by yourself, you didn't want to sign onto a trip, you're not going to get lost. Just, you know, follow the trail. It'll get you there. But this was a charming little village. I kind of enjoyed it. I tried this. It's just a panorama from one of the places that we stopped. You can see Lhotse in there. There are peaks in Nepal called expedition peaks for good reason. And there are other peaks called trekking peaks, which are peaks around 20,000 feet, maybe a little higher, that don't require a great deal of technical skill. And you can, you know, essentially trek to the summit without any, you know, really great mountaineering skills. But Makalu is the 5th highest peak in the world. There you can see it in the background. I did try one night it was just so cold at night. I didn't want to get out of my tent, but one night picture in Dingboche.
Look at that.
From Dingboche, every night we would have a briefing from our head Sherpa about what to expect the next day. And one of the, I don't know, stock phrases that became almost laughable to us was we'd ask Tupten, is it going to be Sherpa flat? And if he said yes, it was like, uh-oh. I never once saw any Sherpa breathe hard. And as you know, you gave me a pulse oximeter to take with me. Our oxygen levels got down into the mid to low 80s, which would mean oxygen if you were in San Diego. But the Sherpas are just amazing people. Getting to the next town, which would be our last stop before base camp, is the town of Lobuche. But to get up there, you have to climb this thing called the Tukla Pass. And it is just, it is so hard. It's hard to even give an idea of how steep it is, but it's a grunt getting up there. Just a FYI here, if you're trekking, all you're expected to carry is just your day pack, which is camera equipment. You know, you're always stripping down and putting on clothes as you heat up and cool down. The bulk of the equipment is carried either by our technical our Sherpa staff or their staff, or on the backs of the Zoks, our animals that went with us. They didn't go up to Tukla Pass. I think our staff carried our gear up there. You were only allowed 35 pounds. So anyway, so the Tukla Pass was Sherpa flat, yes. And at the top, there's memorials to climbers who have perished. on Everest and other nearby peaks. The local porters, of course, you're sitting there, just dying with 10 pounds on your back. And then these guys blow by you and you think to yourself, okay, anyway. So these are some
that is insane.
One of the interesting, they always carry the loads with a strap across the top of their head. I wouldn't even attempt to pick up what these guys are carrying. But the town of Lobuche, pretty grim place, 16,000 feet. That was our last stop before base camp. We spent the night here in a guest house. We didn't sleep outside here. This is the inside of the tea house. These guys are standing around an iron stove that somehow got up there, and there's no wood, so you burn yak dung. And yes, I stood around a yak dung fire and warmed up. Our guide, Tupton, our head guide, he is very good friends with the woman who owns this tea house. They're apparently the woman who owns it and Tupton's wife are very good friends. He goes, I will see this woman every day during the monsoon at my house because my wife and her are very good friends. We got in fairly early in the day, and Tupton asked the lady to turn on the internet for us. And so for a while, we had a lot of bandwidth and were able to share pictures and do all kinds of stuff. But anyway, from there, you go to a place called Gorak Shep. Gorak Shep apparently means dying crows in Nepalese. It's the last stop before base camp. It's another 3 miles and about 1,000 feet. But Gorak Shep, I think I've heard someplace a saying like, this is not the middle of nowhere, but you can see it from there. That's just about right. You can see sort of like a dry lake bed. Gorak Shep is almost, 16,500 feet. After we got back from base camp and I was in my little room, which is more like a cell, there were some of the local guys out actually playing soccer on this dry lake bed. And I was thinking to myself, there's 6 stairs that go up to my room. I can hardly do those. So Gorak Shep, we had a quick bite, and then, oh yeah, remember you paid to do this. Yeah, it doesn't get much uglier than this. Your body's basically falling apart. You're not eating, you're not sleeping, your immune system is just taxed to the max. But anyway, I don't know what this peak is, but this glacier coming down, glaciers are frozen rivers, but this looked like more like a frozen river than anything I've ever seen. This is a considerable peak of Everest called Nuptse. Just misses out by about 150 feet on the 26,000 foot, 8,000 meter peak range. The very pyramid looking peak in the background is actually the west shoulder of Everest. But this is Nuptse. We saw this on the way up. This is a very prominent peak called Pangboche, which is 7 kilometers from Everest Base Camp. And in 2015, the earthquake triggered an avalanche off Pangboche that roared into Everest Base Camp with disastrous results. Quite a few people in the base camp died. This was my last picture of Everest. You actually can't see Everest from base camp. As strange as that may seem. This is the 21st of April. You see the snow plume coming from the summit of Everest. The summit of Everest is in the jet stream. The mountain was not open, quote unquote, for climbing yet. The ice doctors, the Sherpas as they're called, had not completely fixed the mountain. There's a variable weather window late May where the jet stream seems to lift off the summit of Everest, but that's 29,000 feet, the highest point on Earth. This is the trail into base camp. It is hideous, steep, rocky, just not much fun, but you're almost there, and you are there. These are the tents for the people who spend minimum $50,000 to over $100,000 to climb Everest or attempt to climb Everest. They get there about 6 weeks before the weather window opens to acclimatize. There's a lot of controversy, of course, about the traffic jams on Everest. Commercial mountaineering started in the mid-90s on Everest, but this is the international base camp area. Well, this is base camp 17-6. There's me. You can see the tents in the background. And Valerie, there you are in the small picture, as you know, at the luncheon that that you gave me before I took off. I said I would take a picture with me to base camp. Let's see who's in there. Let's see, you, Fabio, Charlie, Jeff, Sherry, Bill, Meg, John.
Yep.
I think I got.
We were all there with you.
Yeah.
Oh.
So anyway, made it to base camp. We were there for maybe a half an hour, and taking pictures and stuff like that. It is a well, yeah. And I don't. I'll just do. We'll see if this works. This is the only video I have.
In base camp, there's some ice fall in the background. The helicopter, I don't know why. It don't look like they're taking anybody off. You can't see Everest from Everest Base Camp, but the team was pretty impressive. Boy, the work to get up here is amazing.
You see, there's a lot of
A
people.
lot of people here. There's the stupa for base camp. Well, I did it.
Wow. You sound good, Dave. I gotta say, like I mean, you could, the fact that you can like talk or have a conversation is kind of shocking at that elevation. Good Lord.
So that was,
that is incredible.
That was base camp. And this is our Sherpa guide. This is Tupten. This was obviously back in Kathmandu. And Sherpa, Tupten's 56. And tough, I don't even think is the word to describe this guy. Our Sherpas were all very kind to us. I asked Tupten at base camp, who's the oldest guy he ever has gotten to base camp, and he looked at me and goes, "You." So pretty cool, but just for total sort of transparency here, and of course, Valerie, you know this, I did not make it all the way back to Lukla. Obviously made it back to Kathmandu, but in Dingboche, I got really, really sick. And we're still 3 days or two days from Lukla. And thank goodness for evacuation insurance. There is no way I could have made it. Combination of food poisoning and just beat up. So Tupten said, "You know what? I'll get you a helicopter." And after waiting quite a few hours, I got evacuated to Lukla, and then back down to Kathmandu, where my brother was waiting for me. They took me off to a clinic, filled me with electrolytes, and got me on some oxygen. I recovered pretty quickly. But if you ever wanted to try to do this trip on your own, that would be the problem. If anything goes wrong, you're in the middle of nowhere, literally. And so to have someone like this say, "You know what, we'll take care of this. We'll get you out of here." There was a video I saw before I went over the winter before our trip. I was in Florida with my family, Tom and Karen, and we were watching a video on YouTube of a Canadian ultra marathoner, don't remember his name, who actually managed to do the trip. This just doesn't seem like reasonable to me, but he did Lukla to base camp and back to Lukla in 7 days. He was extraordinarily lucky. He did not get altitude sickness, but it's like, well, you could stop and smell the roses. You could stop and look around, right? But it was an amazing trip. I've done the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii a number of times. I don't know if really it's apples and oranges, but this is grueling every day. Every day you wake up and go like, well, am I going to make it to the next stop tonight? And it's all of us. I don't think anybody on the trip didn't not sort of have some sort of physical issues, coughing, GI issues. The water is all boiled. You can't drink the local water, of course. Well, the local people do. But it was an amazing trip. Somebody asked me after I got back to San Diego, "Oh, was it fun?" It's like, no. You know what? It really wasn't fun. But so why the hell would you do it? I don't know. It's not like you go to Disneyland and go like, "Oh, I had such a great time. I had such fun at Disneyland." It wasn't fun. But it was what it was. I didn't go into this thinking to myself, "Oh, we had so much fun." It's like yeah, it was difficult. I'm glad I did it. Would I do it again? No. Um, I don't think there's any reason to go there again. There's other places to see and other things to do, but I'm sure glad I did it. And it was an amazing trip.
You know what, Dave, it reminds me that when you say the word, travel, or you say vacation, people do think, fun.
Yeah,
And I always like to sort of point out that there are lots of reasons to travel.
yeah, that's
And,
true.
really, when you think about it, I think it's very important when we travel to get out of our comfort zone.
Oh,
Now, you took that to a whole new level
I'm
of
glad
being
you
out
brought up
of
the
your
word
comfort
comfort zone.
zone,
Yeah, yeah. If
because
your
ain't no
comfort zone,
comfort in what you
yeah,
did.
yeah.
but,
If
but
your
don't
comfort
you
zone
also
is,
think,
oh my God, I need at least every 2 days to shower and clean clothes and wash my hair and shave and stuff, don't go.
no, no,
When my brother decided he wanted to go, I did tell Tom, we're very different in terms of, I'm kind of the camper and whatever of the family. Tom's really not. I think, I'd say, look, Tom, this is not going to be, well, I don't think I told him it's not going to be any fun, but I'm certainly glad he went. He's still speaking to me as far as I know, uh, but no, he was. But it was sad that, well, Tom did get to see Everest, but his injury on the first day made it very, very difficult. So anyway,
that's
but
really,
it was
unfortunate.
a trip of a lifetime, and sure glad I did it. And yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Dave,
Everest.
could I ask you really quick? Can I ask you to stop screen sharing just for a sec?
Sure.
Because I just wanted to say a couple things and let folks know. Thank you.
All right,
Perfect.
good.
First of all, that is an incredible story. It's incredible just at so many levels. And I am just so inspired by you. I've always been inspired by you and the things that you have pushed yourself to do, and just the idea that, there's always more that we can aspire to, and that the things that really hold us back is mostly here, right? We hold
Mhm.
ourselves back, the voice in your head that tells you, I can't do that. And I've always admired you for, you strike me as a person that you've always tested yourself. You've always thought, of course I can do that. It's not going to be hard. It's not going to be fun, but it's about the person you become, right, after you achieve it. And you are not the same person that you were before you went. And I think that's a really important part of travel is,
Yeah, no, that's
we
true.
not only do you see the world, but you see yourself completely differently. And I just want to
Yeah.
say, on behalf of everyone who's watching, congratulations, because that is a huge achievement. And I hope that our viewers, feel as inspired as I do by your story. And I just have to say, boy, at 72, I mean, that's remarkable for any human being at whatever age, but for you to take that on, that's like, kudos to you. That is just, you're a tremendous inspiration to me. So thank you so much for coming
Well,
on and sharing this incredible story.
it was good to see you again. We only live five miles apart, but we never see each other. Maybe I'll see you again at school. Who knows? So
we sure hope so. I want to let everybody know that next Saturday is July 4th. So Lost Suitcases will be dark next week. And I am hoping that you all can enjoy a very happy and also very safe July 4th holiday. I will be back the following week with another great episode, hopefully to inspire you. So keep those suitcases in storage until then. Always come back and check us out. Get your virtual travel fix right here. I'm Valerie Pennington, and everybody stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
all right,
Bye.
thank you. Bye-bye.